It's amazing that you are here. We didn't do that much work, but actually we did to make this event happen. So welcome to the Transformative Technology San Francisco Bay Area Inaugural event. So my colleague Mark, who's the co-host of this chapter in San Francisco, and myself, my name is Mansa Lui. Welcome you here. So Mark and I worked really hard to, or Nicole, definitely, she's our co-founder, worked really hard to make this happen because we realized there are so many companies or people who's interested in doing technology to bring joy and happiness to human beings, right? We all care about other people's happiness. I think that's a great thing. But we also want to bring us together so that we can support each other, so that we can build this community and help more people. So as a previous tango teacher, I actually taught dancing before, I realized, you're not competing with other teachers because you know what? Different students are going to different teachers. So I will attract different so your products will be attracting different kind of people to be buying your product or using your services. In our organization, what we want to do is to help us get feedback and friends and funding so that we all can be successful. So that's our goal. And I want to thank you, our sponsors. The Port Workspace. This is the Port Workspace in Oakland. They have 3 locations. They are sponsoring this event. And also Ripple Effects, which is a 20 years company actually, serving the underserved kids, teaching them emotional resilience skills. There's also the infrared saunas. So they can help you to be healthier. I think maybe one day we'll maybe do an event together with Jessica and let you try out, how to use their product. So with that, I think I will let Mark lead us to do something I've never heard of, which is consciousness perception practice. Thank you.
Good evening. So we'll do a short little practice here that's kind of a meditation, but it's also a perception practice, meaning it plays with our perceptual field and tries to expand it. As most of us here are trying to support human thriving, and we're trying to use technologies to help human beings thrive and evolve. We are kind of called to be at the cutting edge of all this, and that means we need to have what we call breakthrough consciousness. How do we innovate? What is that space where we can invent new things? And part of that is having an expanded consciousness to see a bigger picture. Steve Jobs, Musk, even Martin Luther King, all these people who were change makers actually had expanded consciousness. They were able to see a lot of things that many of us weren't able to see, and the connections of things. So as we're trying to create products that help people heal and grow and thrive and evolve, we are kind of having to also expand our own consciousness so we can help them. So this is a short little practice for us to play with it. So if everyone could get in a comfortable sitting position, well, sitting, but close your eyes and start by just focusing on our breathing, just observing it. Now I call on us to bring our awareness to our thoughts and our feelings. This is our subjective reality, our inner space. And I call on us to hold this awareness of our thoughts and feelings, if we can, while extending it to our physical, external reality, our bodies, feeling our bodies, feeling the objects that our bodies are sitting on, the floor beneath our feet, the sounds in the room, the sounds of our own breath. All of this is our objective, external reality. And holding our inner and our outer reality individually, I call on us to expand our consciousness even more, our perceptual field even more, to include this collective space we are in, this group of minds and bodies gathered together. If you could feel the presence of this space, of our we space, and hold how each of us in this space has these inner and outer dimensions simultaneously within this greater we space. And then finally expand our consciousness even further to hold the systemic environmental realities that are surrounding us, the air we're breathing, the light in this space, the electricity that is powering the devices in our hands or in our purses or our bags. And then these main four dimensions, we can hold them and realize that we are in a moving stream of the now, and the now is flowing, and feeling that trajectory of these dimensions through time. And when you're ready, you could open your eyes. And welcome. And I want to welcome Nicole. And I think we want to do a short introduction of Nicole.
Thank you, Mark. So I would like to introduce our speaker today. We are very honored to have Nicole Bradford here. She's our global organization, our 501c3 Transformative Technology co-founder and executive director. Before Nicole became, work in the transformative technology, she was a senior executive in video games, work in different major brands, including Disney, and also have done strategy, operations, marketing, including the operating World of Warcraft. I think some of you might know, in China. She speaks regularly, actually, in different conferences about transformative technology and exponential technology and culture. I would like us to give her a round of applause to welcome her to talk about how to create human possibilities.
Hi, everybody. Hi. So I'd love to get a sense of who's in the room. Who is currently a transformative tech entrepreneur? Who is currently working full-time on a transformative tech product? Awesome, 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 awesome. And who is thinking about it and trying to figure out what your first thing is going to be? Okay, great. And then who does amazing hardware design for transformative technology products? Excellent. Okay, great. So one of the reasons why we started the communities is because all of the data on startup shows that one of the things that's a great contributor to the success of a company is if the founder is in a community of other founders and has that support, has a interconnected layer of support. And so for our mission of wanting to support humanity by activating transformative technology entrepreneurs and innovators globally, in order to really do that, we realized that we needed to start local chapters where entrepreneurs can connect with one another, entrepreneurs and innovators can connect with one another and get feedback from one another, get support from one another, and that we could also use that to draw in the local funding support. And so probably by the end of the summer, we'll have 20 cities all around the world with chapters. Actually, before I came here, I was meeting with a group who's going to open up Japan, which is really exciting. So it's growing. How many people have been to the Transformative Technology Conference? Okay, how many people have seen my talk? Okay, so I got some new stuff for you, and for those of you who haven't seen it, what we have here and what I wanted to show you for a kickoff event is we'll look at the space. We're going to look at some, some of the news, market sizings, things that help you sort of contextualize just how big an opportunity is for you. In addition, this summer, over the course of the summer, we're going to be publishing 4 reports. The first one is with Deloitte, and it's a future of work powered by transformative tech. So it's a very corporate enterprise, but it shows how the products that you make can be used in corporate settings and how that can be integrated. And we are tying it to, we've worked with many of the human capital leaders who run the human capital practices in Deloitte and have drawn a direct line, extracting from their clients what the biggest problems they have and how transformative technologies can be applied to their problems. So this will be a great tool for you as you're thinking about, if you're thinking about having a B2B product, it'll be a great tool for you to really understand customer development in terms of what enterprise is really looking for. Then the second report that we're going to have come out is a opportunity to activity report. And so that's going to be all of the sort of the data and surveys and what's happening in the world, some of the things you're going to see here mapped against from the global startup ecosystems, the level of transformative tech activity. And so this will be filled with things that you can share with investors in terms of, what are the, how many people are dealing with this or dealing with that, and it'll help you contextualize the opportunity for yourselves, for your loved ones, because if you're an entrepreneur, your whole family's in it, really. So that's the second one. The third one is going to be it's with an investment bank, and we're going to pull all the investors globally. So we'll have we're going to know exactly who they are. Anyone who's had a track record. It, of course, won't show us who might enter the space, but it will know who is in. And then the last one is going to be research. So it's going to be sort of like where the neuroscience research is, where the behavioral, emotional, emotional wellness science is. And that's going to be with a VC firm that actually does invest in basic research. So with those four things, you guys will, really be armed with a lot that you can use to communicate. So this deck is sort of like, an overview of things, and it also is, it's a little bit more, we've got a couple little exercises in it. I love that you did the conscious meditation, because for those of you who have been to the conference, you know that we believe that you make what you are. And so with these really powerful tools, it's incredibly important for you to continue to develop your own consciousness, so that one, you can build extraordinary things, and two, you can, continue to increase your probability of success as managers and leaders, because your level of consciousness has a role to that, and your ability to convey that consciousness by, through your actions. And then also, these are incredibly powerful tools and only getting stronger. And so, the ability to have the mental, emotional, and spiritual maturity to have this kind of power is really important. So, okay, so we'll probably go through, oh, I need glasses. Raise your hand, that's sweet, thank you. It's like I went over there, I was like, I can't see anything. Okay. So it'll be a mix of things, some things you might have seen before. There's 79 slides in here. I realized the reason why I told you about all of the reports is because all of this will be available to you. Everything you see is going to be available to you. This is not the prettiest version, so it's probably not going to be this one, but it will be, elements from this will be available to you with things that you can reuse, cite, and share. So this you haven't seen before. I just went to the Conscious Capitalism conference last week, and a lot of what they talk about is how these four elements really fit into the actual operation of a business. And so, I think all of these things are things that you guys have in your companies and in your lives. And so, this, I think, really speaks to how I think about it. And so, actually, you guys haven't seen this yet. One of our premises is that the actual future of work, society, and tech depends on the state of the human mind. And, what we've been talking about to investors is that, it's the best new mission-aligned, values-aligned. We have to find the right wording for this. But it's a category that many people outside of us haven't heard of before. But fundamentally, it's like, how do we help every human develop the mental and emotional capacity to fulfill their potential? And as you guys know, it's mental health, emotional well-being, and human thriving technologies for that. And so we believe that we stand on an unprecedented era of human flourishing, where psychological well-being can be embraced. What's important here is that previously, psychological well-being was really something that was a luxury, or considered a luxury, or not something that we could spare resources for everyone to have this. But because of the exponential technologies, we now have the ability to get rid of that excuse. And if technology, you've all seen this slide before, if you think of technology as the force that takes what is scarce and makes it abundant, then what we're all doing is doing that for mental and emotional well-being. And so the world is awash with change, and these are some of the major things that are driving change with technology. And so you may have seen this one before, but as you guys all know, it's like we're absolutely, completely, and totally revealed. Absolutely. Like nothing really is hidden yet. This stuff just hasn't really been productized. This is a AI that was fed 5,000 hours of sitcoms and could predict group behavior. So this is individual emotion, and this is group behavior, just based on sitcom data or watching sitcoms. So we're totally revealed. And then part of this is the relevance of all of this is for the future of work. And the reason why this is important is because the jobs of the future are going to be based on human interaction. And human interaction is based, I believe, positive human interaction is based on a level of self-awareness and social emotional skills. And the exciting thing is that we can get at that with technology. And you know, some of the things that we're dealing with, if you sort of like look at the news, we have an outdated educational system. We don't teach what people are going to need. We're having a cognition crisis. I love the Center for Humane Technology. I mean, they're really going after the big companies about this. It's affecting our attention. There's rising stress and anxiety. Our biological systems are not really set up for this. And the medical system is siloed and stagnated. And so, like the way that it works today is that if you have a, if you have a mental or emotional challenge, there's no connection to you ever previously having gotten the skills in order to, manage that or avoid it before it became a crisis. I mean, certainly there are people who have, biological things that happen. But, in many cases, the brain makes the mind and the mind makes the brain. And so I think, when I think about the fundamental challenges in the world, I think a lot of it comes from we don't really teach people how to be, and we don't teach them how to feel, and we don't teach them how to become. And I think that leads to a great deal of the issues that are facing us. And what's exciting is that there's many technologies that can get us to this. And one of the things that any of you who have heard me speak before know that I don't think that technology is the solution. I think that is a tool. And it's really about human-centered design, human-centered considerations, and building the technology that humans really need. Like this. Like this is what we all are. Like we're doing this together. And, often, I know I don't have to tell you guys this, but, often when people come up against this idea, they are, they think that these phones that we've got is sort of like the apex of what technology is going to be, when really it will be what we design it to be. And so one of the things we're doing in this community is taking the approach that we can actually decide what we need. As humans, you can, pick a problem, decide what you need or what you think is needed, and that we can design things that do not, reduce our lives the way, some of the phones are doing. This is me. So I went directly from there to World of Warcraft. As many of you, some of you know, but many of you might not, is that I was in China running World of Warcraft China. Then I went on a meditation retreat and I had an awakening. And I walked out of that retreat, having had a really profound experience and wanting other people to have that too. And because I was really comfortable with technology, I immediately thought, let's use tech to make this accessible to everyone. And that led me to neuroscience and psychology and tech, which led to transformative tech. And so this is our mission. We serve entrepreneurs and innovators, and we're also starting to look at creating communities of investors too. Not just, to put transformative tech companies in front of them, but it turns out these people really also want to be in community around this as well. So it's sort of bigger than that. And our goal is to help you find feedback, funding, and friends. And fundamentally, the reason why we use technology, like none of these are random decisions. Like none of this is based on what's popular or because we live in the Bay or any of this. It's technology because it scales. It's business because it sustains. So Transformative Tech is a nonprofit, but it isn't because we believe that any of you should be. Like you should be able to build businesses that allow you to sustain yourselves, that allow you to buy houses, put your kids in school, employ people, give those people health insurance, you know, it's like, and continue to do what you're doing, you know, in a way that allows you to serve as many people as possible in a sustainable way. And so we believe in business and entrepreneurship and innovation, because that's where those, if you think about who the experimenters are entrepreneurs and actually corporate innovators, believe it or not. These are the people who are experimenting. And since we don't actually know, you know, what are all the products that all the humans are going to need, we need to experiment a lot. And so that's why this combination is there. It isn't because it's fashionable. And so this is the footprint. For those of you who don't know, we have the lab, the community, the conference, we have an industry list, and we have the pre-accelerator, the online academy, which we're going to be doing again this year. And we're going to be putting in challenges this year, so if you did it last year, you can do it again. And we're also like segmenting, and we're going to get a better platform. It's going to be a better experience. The first year we didn't know what we were doing. We just did it. Now we know a little bit more, so we'll be able to serve you better. And we hit 70 countries and 450 cities. So you're not just in San Francisco alone. This is relevant throughout the world. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is of the companies that were, of the participants that were working full-time on a clear transformative technology product, 46% of them were women. And I think that, you know, someone asked me if I thought that that was the case because women are really in touch with their emotions. And I was like, no, women know when the stakes are high. That's why there's so many women in this space, because I believe that, you know, the psychological state of the world is the foundation problem and opportunity. And if we don't get that right, we don't get climate change fixed or anything else. So this is really about, you know, becoming who you need to be to build this company, and being willing to become what you need to be. I think a lot of Valley Speak is very much about, are you willing to crush it? Are you willing to do what you have to do? And certainly, you know, working hard is a part of building anything. It's why so few people do it. But we also say it's actually, are you willing to become who you need to be successful with this company that you're inspired to build? And so what I'd love for you to do is just, you know, we're going to take 2 minutes, turn to the person next to them and tell them what your purpose is, or if you don't know what it is, what you are thinking about. And so do roughly 1 minute each way. I'll tell you what the time is, and then we'll go back to the deck. Okay, get ready to close it up. You have about 10 seconds left. All right. Closing, closing, closing. Okay. Awesome. One of the things I think is really interesting is that at the beginning of this year, Bill Gates, well, actually, this was a different one. He felt that the purpose problem is bigger than automation. It's like, assuming we maintain control, the purpose problem will be bigger than automation. So a bigger challenge to humanity. What do we do? Why are we here? You know, what is it that we're building? Not just with products and companies in your cases, but just in general. What are we doing and why are we here? And so it's really important as an entrepreneur, I think, to be able to answer this question. And what's interesting about this is that, I think that understanding our purpose is based on knowing oneself, and knowing oneself is a combination of these three things. What I say, what my body says, because our bodies, keep the score and they tell the truth, and what my behavior says. And so these, for all of you who are in this space, that these bottom two are totally accessible by technology at this point. Some in various stages, and the top one is what is still unknown, but it's clearly moving towards that way. And so if we have the ability, I believe we have to get ethics, privacy, and data sovereignty and data integrity right. But if we get that right, then we can use technology to help us, to help every person answer this fundamental question, to explore the fundamental question. And if they can explore this fundamental question, and then on top of it, I believe they have a better chance of identifying what their purpose is, or what their purposes are, because throughout the course of a human life, I think at different times we have a different calling. So it depends on you, all of you. And so we're going to do it again, 1 minute each way. What are you doing to be prepared to build this company? What are you doing with yourself in terms of how are you working on yourself in order to be prepared to build this company? So again, you pick a different pair, pick someone different that you didn't meet before, and 1 minute each way, saying what you're doing, what you're working on, how you're developing yourself. So, okay, come back. I love that. I love these conversations, I love these conversations, and I'm so excited to see you all talking to each other. That one's particularly juicy. One of the great things about being in the Bay, too, is that we have access to so many things. Oh, thank you. So, one of the questions is why is now the right time for you to build your company? And really what it is we're at a point where need, demand, and means are coming together. And so the need is the rising social and economic costs, which I'm going to show you some more data. The demand is that the people want happiness and well-being, especially young people. If you look at the data around the world, they really want it. And the technology is starting to arrive. And so this is sort of the way we look at it. We call it future basics, future work, and future human. And so, I've moved some of these around for those of you who have been with me for a while. So now future basics, this is a world where, everyone has this basic toolkit. It's the understanding of how to have mental health, emotional health, how to sleep, how to manage stress, and how to be happy. And so in many ways, I think one of the things that happens in our society is that people assume that these just happen. But all of these things are actually trainable. A basic skill set is trainable. And what that means for us is then that means that we can use technology to help train people so that they can participate in creating this for themselves. The second category is the future of work, which is all the emotional intelligence and social emotional skills, all of these things. And then the last one, this is the exciting, crazy stuff, but it's enhancing and expanding mental and emotional capacity. So we're in the process, when we do that opportunity one, we'll be able to give you another market sizing. On one hand, it's a little, right now I have it at about 3.7 trillion, but that's I would call it, it's a dirty sizing, which means it's kind of like combining things together. It's not a really super clear sizing, partially because the lens that I use to look at the world is different than the way other people line it up. So I have to take part of this and part of this to find the market sizing. This I thought was interesting. For those of you who have read Yuval Harari, he says that the future of the next human agenda is longevity, augmentation, and happiness. And so this is taking those as markets. So over here, the longevity market is 270 billion in 2024. The guys over at IndieBio believe that everything can have synthetic biology. And they're looking at synthetic biology from everything for CO2 extraction to like everything can be engineered. And so, you know, what is going to ultimately be the market sizing for us? I believe that everyone has, and the reason why this is relevant is because you know, my wish for you is that you're running businesses. But everyone has a mind that's universal. People want health and happiness and well-being, especially younger people. And the businesses of the future must unlock the creative, imaginative, and empathetic potential of the people who work in their companies. And part of it is that, I don't know, many of you might have seen that Google research that said that the most productive teams weren't the ones with the smartest people on them, but they were the ones where the manager was able to establish psychological safety, where people felt safe to be able to challenge one another. So it doesn't mean consensus. You know, it doesn't mean a padded room, or a padded crib. It's where people felt comfortable challenging one another, felt comfortable coming up with new things, felt comfortable being creative. And so those managers have high social emotional skills. So it all comes together. So I don't know what this market sizing is going to be, but like, Mike Edelhart said, it's hard to imagine a bigger opportunity. And then, this is sort of like the tie between health and happiness, that, the happier you are, or, the more well-being you have, the more health is actually within reach for you, because that mind-body connection is so tied. So this is the market sizing now organized by my new categories. And as by looking at this, you can see why, I don't have the kind of market sizing that someone would have at Coca-Cola or something like that. But we're working on it, and hopefully by the end of the summer, I'll have something that you guys can use in your communication that slices it a little bit differently. This is global wellness. Now, there's stuff in here that we don't focus on, but they've been at their sizings for a while, and they say it's 4.2 trillion. They include things that, that we don't. But it's interesting, so we're trying to triangulate to the size of the opportunity. This is really interesting. Meditation is the fastest growing wellness activity in the US. If you could actually look at the chart, so the CDC did this in 20, can we sharpen the resolution on the projector at all? Maybe. Oh, other way. Okay. All right. Well, so this is the Trump effect. After the US election in 2016, that's exactly, like if you talk to the Calm guys, that's exactly when their business took off. And so, people needed something. They needed relief from Facebook. They needed something, so they reached out for meditation, because right about that time was when the studies started coming out en masse about the positive benefits of meditation, but validated studies. And so this is what happened. The reason why I put this here is I believe a correction is coming. An economic correction has got to come, and so I don't think that, it's like the winter is coming, but it's okay if you have your winter gear. So if you have your hat and your gloves and your parka and your boots, you'll be fine. What I think we're going to see is we're going to see when people lose their jobs, they're going to lose their health insurance. And they are going to reach for the people who are inclined to take care of their health are going to reach for your products to help them bridge the gap between what was covered before and what they no longer have. So we're going to see this kind of surge with the economic, when that correction comes, we'll see a surge in usage for the things that you build. You'll see a surge in demand. At the same time, there will be a reduction in liquidity in terms of it's going to be harder to get investors because people sit on the sidelines only the brave typically invest during downturns. But what that does mean is that if you are solving a real problem for a real person and solving it well, you can build your businesses over time. You know, one of the things that's really important to know, and that we'll be talking more about probably maybe the next meetup, or one of them, is that like venture investors are only people you should talk to if you are prepared to grow 20% a quarter. Like if you're not prepared to do that, then there's actually a lot of other forms of investment. And so one of the things we're going to do, not just with this chapter, but all the chapters, is we're going to help you understand all the types of ways that you can grow, but get investment. But the best way for you to get investment is to sell extraordinary products to people who need them. You know, and so you know, what will happen is that the companies that are really great at, have a great product, are great at describing it and in a way to build community around it, they will find a tremendous amount of demand for what they've got. So we'll help you through that. But, you know, this is exciting because it shows that people are willing to use these types of products. This is kind of interesting. The top 10 wellness apps grew 170% year on year usage. So this means that people are willing to use the products. They're just waiting for you to make really great ones. One of the things I'm really excited about in tracking is smart cities. And the reason why it's on my radar is because the smart city stack is at a place where it can pick up the biosignals. Now yes, you know, data sovereignty, ethics, privacy, data integrity, like that has to be solved. And I'm actually like looking at what Estonia has done and a bunch of other things. But imagine a city that is actually on your side. Like the actual city is configuring itself around you for, you know, to help you fulfill your purpose. Like that's interesting, and especially because by 2050, 2/3 of the world's population is going to live in cities. That's what's going to happen to the cities, and so to have those cities really be cities that support us would be fundamental, you know, for humanity. And then, of course, you know, having education include psychological wellness and how to have that. You guys have seen this before. These are the areas of transformative tech. This is in all of our decks that you can download. This is one of the frameworks using tech to assess, amplify, enhance, and connect. And so now we're going to do a little thing. Again, pick a different person and tell them who you want to serve. And we'll do a minute each way. Like, who are you serving, you know, with this thing that you're bringing into the world? Come back, come back, come back. So one of the questions is, to what end? And so for those of you who have been at the conference, you saw that the goal is to help elevate 2 billion people into flourishing by 2050. And this number is, not out of the air. It's based on a UPenn study of online communities, because by this period of time, I assume everyone will be online, that showed that it took roughly 25% of a population, an online population, that once 25% of the online population had a belief, they infected the rest of the population. Other people took up that belief. On one hand, that's scary. It works both ways. But for people like us, what that means is that if between the aggregation of all of your impact, and not just here, but all the people working in 70 countries and 450 cities, using technology products that are scalable, if our collective aggregation can support 25% of the online population into a state of flourishing, then we can actually change the world. Like, we can actually do that. And so 2 billion to me sounds much better than 8.5 billion. So this actually feels really doable to me. It's one of the reasons why, a lot of, one of the things in the Bay, there's a lot of focus just on entrepreneurs. The reason why we say entrepreneurs and innovators is because I'm looking for the places where people are aggregated. So like 31% of the working world works at large organizations. And a big chunk then work at small organizations. So, the people are in companies. The people are in schools. The people are in cities. The people are in healthcare systems. And so that's why we serve both entrepreneurs and innovators, because we're looking for people who are building things that can be deployed into large populations. So as well as independently. So that's where this number comes from. This is kind of crazy. And this is something that not many people are tracking. But currently, with everything that's happening today, just moving forward, 40% of US GDP will go to healthcare costs by 2050. This is unmanageable. You probably saw 2 weeks ago, Medicare is going to run out by 2026. Medicare is done. And there's a lot of people who get their healthcare covered that way. In addition, Americans are skipping going to the doctor. And 90% of those costs today are driven by chronic health and mental health, which a good chunk of that is driven by stress and the things that you do when you are stressed, right? So this is to sort of like give you context. We don't, actively work on, some of these things in, we don't actively work in healthcare, but the number one driver of chronic health issues and mental health issues is stress. And many of our products work on that in one way or another. So you guys have seen this before, all this stuff is going up. I'm gonna bum you out for a minute and then I'm gonna make it lighter. Loneliness, big problem. Epidemic, depression. Oh, it's so depressing, I know. This is new, you haven't seen it. This just came out. Teenagers say that 70% of their peers are dealing with depression and anxiety. One of the things about teens is you can't ask them directly if it's them, but you can ask if their friends are having it. If 70% of them are having it, it means they're all having it. And then this is what's happening in corporations. 76% say that it's affecting their personal relationships, losing sleep, quit jobs. These are the diseases of despair. Also in China, worldwide, these things are rising. U.S. well-being going down. I promise we're going to go back up. I know I'm bumming you out. 71% of millennials wake up thinking about their current stress. And so, you know, a lot of what we do, traditionally, tech has hit these on Maslow's hierarchy. And so what we're working on is actually using technology to go up through the hierarchy. This was in the top 10 report that Bill Gates did in January, where he picks 10 technologies. He spoke a lot about well-being, and he said that he expected that the report, was it 20, maybe it was 2026, maybe 2025, he was expecting that the report then, every technology on it would be well-being related. So this is the MIT annual. This I think is interesting. You saw this before. It's like, this is an innovation lead who says that people have to access the best, most creative part of themselves. And so what I'm doing, by the way, is I'm kind of going around the borders. That's why it feels so circular, because we're like going around the borders before we go in very quickly, and then we'll do questions. But categories are getting reinvented, and these are some of the big ones that are in the space, you know, that are all, at this point, all of these are in past Series A. But how it was before and how it's, you know, what's happening now. And so you guys, you know, you guys will be on this list in a few years. You've seen all of this. These are some of the categories. And this is in the deck that you can download online. You guys have seen this. I'm really excited about voice. I'm really excited about haptics. I think there's tremendous product opportunity. And this is, you know, more voice on the big company level, but many of these people are just enabling, and so they can enable products and content that you develop that sit on top of these platforms. So today you can develop an app for Alexa. Like, all of you could do that today. And then you've seen some of these. We'll pass on that one. So this is, you know, this is our fundamental question. What if? And this is why we build these companies, so that we can know ourselves better than any outside algorithm. And that I think probably my belief in this is really built on my experience in meditation and on retreat and monastery. I think right now there's a tonality in some of the backlash techlash, that says that human beings, when presented with what they like at the right time in the right moment, are absolutely helpless before technology. And I don't believe that that's true. I think an untrained mind is helpless, but I don't think a trained mind is. And so this, you know, and most people have to go to monasteries or put a lot of work in to get a trained mind, but, you know, not so with the products that you're starting to develop and build. You know, you help move people towards this. And so we're doing this so that we could create technology that helps us do this. So we can harness our brain's plasticity, because we know that the brain will change and can change, and that nudges add up. This is current funding divided by these categories. I can send you this. This is from Catalyst Ventures. And these are some of the people that you've seen on our stage at Transformative Tech and how they sort of, you know, play out. And this is, again, just venture. In our academy this year, we're going to go into different types of funding, receivables, like a bunch of things that you can do, so that you don't have to go the venture route. unless that's, really the right fit for your business. Let's see. Here's one of the reasons why we're going to start aggregating the investors, and one of the reasons why it's really important to have aligned investment is if you think about the incentive systems that, is sort of epitomized by a private prison, where, their incentive, they make more money the longer people stay. So they really have no incentives for people to get out and not come back. And so if we have a profit-only motive and profit-only investors as our investor base, and if we're doing the raise money shell game that that many companies out here are doing, then we risk having a profit-only investor base, because this will be one of the biggest categories, with data that is personal, vital, and can deeply influence human psychology, or products that can deeply influence human psychology. So, we have to work together to make this not happen. And that is it. Build your companies, and we're here to help you do that. I'm going to do everything I can to help you do that. Any questions? Yes.
You talked about the technology, and I'm visually impaired, so you may have shown it, but what are some of the technologies that address stress, for example?
Okay. So the question was, what are some of the technologies that address stress? So the first level of technologies that can address stress are feedback mechanisms. So it could be heart rate variability training, because your heart rate is a good sign of whether you're in your sympathetic or your parasympathetic nervous system. And if you learn to train your heart rate variability, you can lower your stress. There's also things like getting a good night's sleep can actually lower your stress level on the stress markers. And so we include technologies that help measure, assess, and sleep train so people can get better sleep. Additionally, I think one of the things that I am really excited about that does not yet exist is I closely track the progress of continuous glucose monitors that that would not be inconvenient for people without diabetes. Because I think certainly diabetics need these products, but as soon as you can go to a Walgreens and buy a patch that has a shallow dermal needle that when you stick it on, you don't even notice it, that is tied to an app that allows you to track your food and your mood, and millions of people do that, we'll be able to understand with data, the food-mood connection, and people will be able to really truly not guess but understand how what they eat drives their psychological state and their and their stress level. So that's interesting, but there's a whole bunch of examples of what you could do with stress.
Are these technologies licensable right now?
It depends. It depends. There's a lot of products out there that you could buy on Amazon, and there's also underlying research. Heart rate variability is a very well understood biosignal because it was in hospitals and labs for a very long time before the advent of wearable technology, and the iPhone sort of unleashed them, and mobile phones sort of like untethered them from labs. Cool. Yes?
Well, how do you relate to the people having a very positive collective vision at a large scale as being part of which results in health? I myself am doing exactly that, essentially a global neighborhood network specifically transforming for sustainable development.
So two of the major measures of psychological well-being, one is the positive psychology PERMA, which includes having a purpose. It's unfortunately that those measurements are not empirically validated, or they don't hold up empirically all the time, but I think directionally it's very interesting. The flourishing measures gold standard academic measures do hold up, and that also includes purpose. And so I think, there are, like one of the things I think that you saw a slide that said, what about using Alexa to challenge meaning making? One of the things I think is very interesting is that the cognitive behavior tables look very much like training tables for, machine learning. When someone says this, then you say that, and when someone says this, you say that. I personally use Byron Katie's 4 questions a lot, just on my own. When I get triggered, I'll use those 4 questions. And so I think the ability to integrate those moments of reflection into technology in a very low friction way. Like right now, if you look up the CBT journals or mood journals or whatever, a lot of it requires you to pick up your phone and to go to the app and then to open it and then journal like this. And it's actually hard to journal like this, or you'll do it in your, to actually write free flow freely. And so, it's interesting, probably about 4 years ago, I went on a date, and the guy's phone rang, and he was like, "I'm so sorry, I have to get this." And he put it on speaker so I could hear, and it was a bot with a British accent who was calling him and asking him what were the 3 best things that happened to him that day. And it called at the same time every day, and then transcribed directly to text. Then you could use natural language processing on the text, and he could see over time, what his mood was like and what were the things that he was valuing, and it made it easy. Ultimately, that product never happened, but that product is so easy to build. That product never happened. Whoever was doing it, they were too early, because this was 4 years ago, maybe 5. So whoever did it, I didn't ever find out who did it, but they were too early. But those products exist, and so you could have something, that helps you go through the process of asking yourself the questions that would help you get to a purpose. Or one of my other favorite frameworks now is the idea of a pearl necklace. And so a pearl necklace with big threads between it, and each pearl being a human who's actually trained, psychologist, psychiatrist, healer. And then the technology is the thread between the moments that you're with that person. Because anyone who's in the healing, the area of healing will tell you, it's what people do in between when they see you is fundamental to whether or not they get better.
Suggesting so that app isn't better. See, I'm working with a vision which is highly technologically exists, but for people who learn about it, it's what am I going to do to be part of that vision? How can I contribute to it? And that's a very necessary in order to.
Yeah. Well, so the thing that we'll publish in July is really going to be need, opportunity, gap. And so someone who's trying to figure out what they're going to do could look at that and be like, okay, I like that gap. I'm going to go explore doing something in that, and then we'll support that inside of the academy. Okay, thanks.
So along the lines of being early, are you finding in the research that, this stuff, many of us have been thinking about for a long time and starting to catch up, or the world is starting to catch up. But are you finding that it is now a good opportunity to, are people ready for this? I mean, for me, I feel like kind of, but there are things that people are not quite
You know, that's the question of my life. That was the question of my life. And to be very candid and honest with you guys, I had a couple of really scary years. You know, like I kind of left a great situation that I loved. You know, I did not, you know, my awakening was not that games were bad. I love games, but that there was another need, another purpose that I could fulfill. So I thought a lot about the question. The question was, is it too early or is it right on time? I would say, like, if there's a wave, you know, you don't want to be behind the wave, because if you're behind the wave, once it moves, it is very difficult to catch it. You don't want to be too far ahead of the wave, because if you're ahead of the wave when it's cresting, then, you know, you've run out of funding, energy, you know, like psychological capacity, because it's hard work building anything. And then the wave just crashes on you, and the people who are right on the wave, you know, like they reap the benefits, right? So I thought a lot about it, and I would say I think it's right now. The first things that are going to be coming out of the gate, it's going to be the mental health, emotional health, sleep, stress, and happiness. So it's basically the future basics. So the future basics are teed up right now. People are starting to invest in them. The traditional investors are starting to look at the sector. You know, the way one person described it to me is that transformative tech is the cheapest way to get into healthcare. Because one of the things, what that, you know, by 2050 means is that the healthcare people themselves, who have always sort of poo-pooed preventative health, are starting to understand that the economics are unsustainable. And so you actually have the healthcare systems starting to, you know, question how they approach things, mostly because they're trying to get the cost down. And so that chronic health part that's tied to stress, they're trying to get that down. And you probably saw there was a New York Times expose about 2 weeks ago that did a meta study on most of the workplace wellness programs, because there was a promise that there was a tie to healthcare cost, and it's showing that there's like no correlation. Now, a lot of those, if you really dig into those studies, a lot of them are, it includes things like, you know, yoga classes and, you know, a bunch of other things. I think fundamentally what it doesn't include, the ones that are really working are the ones that include community within the company, within the programming. So if you just sort of like have a content drip in an organization, it's not taking the cost down. So I would say that first one is teed up right now. What's coming right after it, and where there are no products, like no great products, is the future of work stuff. And it's not just future of work, but it's like future of humans solving problems together and being creative together. Now, how fast that's coming is really tied to how fast the automation line rises. But, you know, there's a really interesting talk by a woman named Vivian Ming, who sort of lays out how white-collar jobs are, you know, what people considered, oh, you know, certain jobs like those two are at risk in their current form. So that's a little bit further out, you know, in terms of it being a universal thing. But today, there are few to no good tech products that could be deployed in enterprise that could help people with mental and emotional, well, with social and emotional skills. And so, so I think that that's if I were building a product, that's what I'd be building right now. And here's one of the ways to think about the waves. So if you think about, you know, the three majors in meditation, calm, headspace, and insight timer, the only problem they solve is access. The only problem they solve is access. They don't solve outcomes So what happens after access in any category is outcomes, like actually helping people have a better meditation. So one of like the, how many people know what a dark horse is? Dark horse. So what a dark horse is in business terms is it is the rider that comes out of nowhere that you don't expect. And so I actually think, a lot of people considered Interaxon to be just a hardware product and did not compare them to Headspace or any of those guys, but they bought the number 4 meditation app in the world, Meditation Studio. And so now they have hardware and the number 4 meditation app. So they can do access and outcomes. And so now they're positioned actually in a way that Calm, Headspace, and Insight Timer are not. Now, Calm and Headspace have raised a crap ton of money, so they're probably going to start buying. They're going to buy, and they have to justify what they raised. So you can expect that they're going to try to buy their way into outcomes. But right now, where people might have like counted Meditation Studio out of the running, I would say that they can't be counted out now because the product combination that actually gets you a better meditation. And their next thing is going to be, and I was on a panel with their head of marketing last week in Miami, so I know that they've said this publicly, but their next thing is to have dynamic meditation. So instead of you just doing the birds, you'll be able to listen to one of the teachers, and they have like 65 teachers that are very high level. So it's not like sort of like sorting through Insight Timer and hoping to find someone if you don't already know. It's 65 high-level teachers whose instruction to you will be adaptive based on your brain waves. So when people can get what their goals are, that will always beat access. And so in the social emotional or in the enterprise level, emotional intelligence, social emotional skills, emotional self-regulation, self-awareness category that can be deployed in enterprise. The access is basically content drips at best. So all those corporate programs are basically, you're just watching a screen. It's like the, for all of you who have worked in companies, it's like that horrible, sexual harassment training stuff. And I don't mean that that's a bad topic, but it's like the way that they teach it is like the exact opposite of how you would teach something. And the same for, it's also ethics and compliance. Like that's how they're teaching social emotional skills. So, that's a huge opportunity. The future human stuff is a little bit further out because it's following the basic science. So you have basic science first, basic research, and so that's following a lot of the neuroscience research. But also now it includes, like the vagus nerve and a bunch of other things. So that's, so it's basic science, then you have applied science, which is like how does it actually show up in the world. Then you start to get data. Then you have integration. Then you have community. And then you have personalization, hyper-personalization. So there's a stack on all of it. So I can send you guys a link to someone who's like outlined the stack. So what you could do is you could look at your interest and you could actually like check the boxes to see where on the stack you want to work and what your timelines are. That's a little bit further out. So I would say this first chunk is like right now. Like if you're on your surfboard, you should be like getting up on the line. If you're doing the other part, you should be like you have about 2 to 5 years, but then 2 to 5 years from now, that market will be where the first one is. And then the future human is like 5 to 10. Does that answer your question? Yeah, this is like all the stuff that's in my head.
There's a level below that, which is the fundamental scientific revolution like Einstein did, which is a dark arts writer. So what do you recommend to a dark arts writer since I'm basically the dark arts
It really depends on your, across that whole psychological spectrum, it really depends on what problem you want to solve. She was next.
I'm a counseling psychologist and a philanthropist, also a social entrepreneur who developed a serious game for kids with chronic and serious illness to help improve the emotional side. What's going on? I agree with absolutely everything that you said. In fact, I call the messaging in my text too, which is interesting. But one thing I'd like to get your comment on, which is about nonprofit model not being a sustainable model.
It is sustainable. It is sustainable. I mean, here's the thing, is that I don't think you can 2 billion, I don't think you can nonprofit to 2 billion people. I think you can have a combination of things, but I do think the flywheel of business is important.
Because my model includes earned revenue streams, which are absolutely allowed in the nonprofit space. But as a philanthropist, all I'm saying is that there's plenty of philanthropic capital out there, I think, and people choose to stay. And I think it's a mistake sometimes because of the confusion around impact investing. And impact investors don't require the same return. Because I'm also an impact investor as real investors or something. And so a lot of people are putting products out there that have no economic model whatsoever in hopes that they can access this impact investment capital, in my opinion. Have you seen that at all? Or?
Well, so a couple of things. I would, if you are interested in helping bring your knowledge to the overall community around the Academy, that would be great. And we would love to have it. Two, I think that the modern definition of nonprofits includes sustainable revenue streams, and many people don't know that. Three, I think that venture is only something someone should do if they're prepared for a 20% growth rate, and that's what they want to do, because that isn't what every product should have, and it isn't what every product should do. Say that again?
You can have a successful product that goes to market that's spread, that grows, that stays in the nonprofit space.
Yes, I mean, I definitely think so. I mean, where what I mentioned comes from is a desire to, I mean, part of the reason why I'm doing this instead of, building a product myself is because my goal is to launch, I call it launching 1,000 ships, and for them all to and eventually together we'll all get somewhere. It's like if you throw a cracker into a pond with minnows and they all just nibble little tiny bits, and then eventually, the cracker breaks. And so certainly, nonprofits have a role in breaking the cracker.
We saw the event with people involved in the TransTech around the world. So my question is, what are resources out there for people around the world, not only California, as there is the TransTech Lab and TransTech Academy. So what are the resources out there for people to get involved in TransTech? And what can we do to bring more?
Great. Thank you for asking what you can do, too. So right now, where we're focusing our efforts is for the pre-accelerator, the Academy, we copied Y Combinator's startup school. And so with that, participating in that, whatever, all of the different countries that all of you have connections to, when we start marketing and recruiting for the Academy, to really help us, reach into other cities and find the people who either are or want to build these products. One of my favorite products that was in the Academy just because I love that people would not think of it, was a chatbot, like a counseling chatbot in Nigeria. And that chatbot included discussion on how to talk to your parents about your arranged marriage, how to talk to your tribal elders. You know, it was like things that, you know, it's very localized, but really relevant to those people. So, you know, I'm here in the Bay, but I don't have a Bay orientation. And so, you know, for each of you, you know, sophisticated world travelers, when we start recruiting for the Academy, to really help us get the word out, so we can find the others. So that's one thing that you can do. And then, you know, really help Monza and Mark build this local community, you know, and then support your fellow entrepreneurs who are in it. So when people want to hack on an idea or want to bounce something off of you or want you to beta their product, do it. You know, and one of the questions often that happens is, you know, what would be the difference between this and Koch's Hacking, which is a sister organization of ours, which we love. I love them. What we do that's different is that we're going to be very focused on commercializing products and helping you build companies or nonprofits that have products. And so it's going to be a very, very focused sort of, this is what we're doing. Yes?
I just had wanted to harken back to something you had in one of your early slides, that this general space has the ability to disrupt a number of billion-dollar industries, or trillion-dollar, I'm not sure what your number was there. I was just thinking pharmacological drugs and those kinds of things. What other industries do you think have the potential to be disrupted fundamentally by this?
Well, I mean, it's, you know, all of the different, many of the components of healthcare, many of the components of education, you know, are in there too. It's a big, you know, it's a big map, and so those are the ones that I think will get disrupted. And then there's, you know, the things that don't exist yet are just like, there's markets that are going to, like right now, neurotech is only at 8 billion worldwide, and that's everything. That includes like everything people are doing with neurotech. And as more basic research turns into applied research, you know, this year in 2018, the NIH put $8 billion into brain research, and you know, and the funding, there's more where that's coming from, because it turns out that, you know, bipartisan, it turns out that, you know, many elected officials who are, you know, getting on in their years, it's something that they can all agree on, that they want to understand the brain, and therefore Alzheimer's and dementia and everything else. So that funding's actually, you know, still coming. So I think there's things that are going to come that we don't even, like, it won't be a disruption because these markets don't exist yet in applications. Anything else? Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to all of you for wanting to do this work and being a part of this community, and you know, and helping the world in this way, because it, you know, you have the ability to make a fundamental impact by building things that help people that utilize technology in a good way. So thank you. And Monza, Mark, thank you so much for hosting me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, so thank you so much for being here. I would like to invite you to connect with us. Sorry. So you can connect with us in different ways. So here are some of them. So we are on Meetup, we are on Eventbrite. We have our website, actually it's pretty new, the transformativetech.org. We are on Facebook. To build this community, we really need you. But also, I think you would want to have friends, funding, and feedback. I invite you to, we are going to have other things that, for example, Nicole was saying that a lot of people are asking her about feedback on their deck. So we would probably have an event in that soon. And so people would need to apply, we would look at your deck first, and then we will do it in the event. Also, a lot of people say that they need mentors and advisors and co-founders. And so we will see how we can also help you to find those. So connect with us. We want your suggestions, and also we need volunteers as well. So if you're interested in volunteering, please email me. I'm the organizer for the volunteers. So thank you. We need to empty out the space by 9 p.m., but feel free to socialize a little bit and have a good evening. Thank you.